I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I don't go to Olive Garden and tweak out like an addict shoving breadsticks in my face hole while the waiter looks away in disgust as he grates a cheese mountain on my plate. But you know you can do better at home, right? Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Good morning, you beautiful people. Today you're gonna learn how to make 3 core pasta sauces, including one that people always argue about, and you can make each one in the time it takes you to boil your pasta. Now, first up is arrabbiata, which out of all 3 pastas we're making today has technically the most prep work, but also isn't a lot. But before we deal with any of that prep, we need to start by filling a pot with water and putting it on the stove. And here's a fun fact for you. I'm sure like most of you, when you go to boil water, you probably turn your faucet all the way hot because you're like, oh, then the water's hotter, so it'll boil quicker, which is true. But the consequence of that is the water you're now heating up has run through your water heater. And unless you're really on top of flushing and cleaning out your water heater, chances are there's probably a good solid amount of mineral deposits in that water, which ends up on your pasta. And if you're thinking, oh, like, nah, that's not mine, no, I would say take a stainless steel pan, put a little bit of hot water in it, throw it on your stove, and then let it cook off and steam off, and you'll see that residue that's left over. But also, I'm not a scientist, that's just my personal experience and a lot of time on the internet. Anyways, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and crush and strip off the skin from some garlic that fell on the floor. We're just going to ignore that and pretend it didn't happen.
The skin.
I've got roughly 6 cloves here, but honestly, it's personal preference. If you really like garlic, go ahead and add more garlic. If you are not super into garlic and you're lying to yourself, then don't add as much garlic. And then we're just gonna give this all a rough chop so we don't end up with a large chunk of garlic in our bite. And then we'll just set that to the side on a bench scraper so we can easily move it later. Next up, you'll take just a little bit of Italian parsley. You really don't need a lot of it. This is roughly 4 to 5 stems worth, and you also could pick leaves off of stems, but really it doesn't matter that much, because we're just gonna roughly chop it anyways. And then we are also just going to set this to the side. Next up, we have basil, which if you're still buying basil in those little like plastic containers, the ones at the grocery store where it's like, here's like 4 or 5 stems and it's like $6. Please don't do that. This is a basil plant, which I got for $3 at the grocery store. Like, not even anything fancy. It was just at Albertsons. And now whenever I need basil, I can just snip, 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 snip. And to maintain this, you can go the super easy route like I do and just put it inside a deli and then fill up a little bit of water and just top it off when it looks dry. It's very minimal work for a great return. And for the basil, you can go ahead and cut it if you want, but I don't like to cut basil if I can avoid it. That said, I'm going to cut basil later today. But in this case, just layer it up and tear it. Now your 10 leaves of basil are all artsy and torn up in a nice, cool, different, unique way. And the last thing you're going to need is a 28-ounce can of peeled whole San Marzano tomatoes. They look like this. But also, bear in mind, not all San Marzano tomatoes are the same. These are San Marzano tomatoes, but they are not DOP San Marzano tomatoes, which is the regulatory body that approves San Marzano tomatoes, I think. I don't know the specifics. All I know is that if you can find a can that says DOP certified on it, get that one. And then all you're gonna do is just crack open the can. Now, before we start cooking down our sauce, my pasta water is boiling, so we're gonna start with that. Traditionally, for something like this, people use penne, but I'm using fusilli because I like it. And really, there are no rules, except salt. Add salt, generous amounts of salt. Followed by about 250 grams of raw pasta, not raw, dried pasta. Usually that's about half the package and enough for 2 people. Now, in a saucepan on medium-high heat, we're going in with a little bit of olive oil, a roughly chopped garlic, as well as about a tablespoon of red chili flakes. If you want it more spicy, you can add more, but that's a nice middle ground. Then I'm just gonna saute this around until it's got nice and fragrant and my nose hairs are burning. Just make sure to keep it moving so that way your garlic doesn't burn, or your chili flakes. You don't want that to burn either. And don't forget to stir your pasta too, so it doesn't stick to the bottom of your pot. And now after about 3 minutes, or once that garlic starts to get really fragrant, go ahead and add in your whole canned tomatoes. Then just using your wooden spatula or spoon, you're gonna wanna break up those tomatoes. Not all the way, but you don't want like a giant tomato in your bite. So just use sound judgment. Now, as this comes back up to temp, you're gonna notice a lot of bubbles and splatters. So just be wary because molten tomato doesn't feel good on the skin. Like that, almost immediately. That's great. Learn from my mistakes, please, because it sucks. I can feel it through my apron. And while this continues to cook down, you just wanna make sure you're scraping the bottom so that way nothing's getting stuck or nothing's getting burnt, and it cooks down your sauce nice and even. Now, after about 7 to 8 minutes cooking this down, most of that moisture, most of that excess water has evaporated. We're now just gonna wanna salt our sauce. Remember, it's tomatoes, and tomatoes can take a lot of salt, so don't be afraid of salt, but also, you know, add a little by little, stir it in, give it a nice mix, and then give it a good taste. A little more. And then of course you can't forget your black pepper. Now our pasta is almost done, so the last thing we're gonna do is scrape up that parsley and basil, add that in, and then just give that all a nice fold together. I mean, you can't look at that and tell me that isn't beautiful. Come on. And now to make sure our pasta's done, it's done. And we're just going to carefully move it over to our sauce. And now we want this sauce to emulsify just a little bit better. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of pasta water and just go ahead and work that into our sauce. I don't know if you can tell, but there's pasta sauce everywhere, which is just the nature of making a red sauce, but you gotta clean as you go, you know? And before I top this off with a nice grating of Parmigiano Reggiano, I have to say, this is the last time you will ever see my Parmigiano Reggiano tomahawk. Because the last time I showed it to you guys all made fun of me for it. But I think it's pretty cool. This is it. Final gratings that you will ever see, the Parmigiano Reggiano tomahawk. And next up on our list of things you're going to accomplish today, we have pesto, which start with pine nuts. Oh, you're right. Yes, these are not pine nuts because pine nuts are expensive and can be hard to find. These are sesame seeds, which are inexpensive and much easier to find. And can I tell you a secret? Get closer, closer. This will work just as good. Now we're gonna start off by toasting our sesame seeds, about 32 grams or 4 tablespoons worth. Spread them out and let them toast over medium heat. Now mine come already toasted, but I want mine to be extra toasted because we're putting it in pesto, so why not? Now, one of the more important things to toasting, whether it's seeds, nuts, beans, or whatever it is movement, because you don't want your beans or nuts or seeds or whatever it is to be unevenly toasted, right? You don't want it to burn on one side and be nice and toasty or whatever it is, and the other side is raw. So keep it moving, make sure that it stays nice and even. While that toasts, I totally forgot to remind you, start boiling your water. This sauce goes even quicker, and so you're gonna spend a lot of time just waiting for your pasta. And now after about 5 minutes of toasting, and I'm really starting to get that nutty smell, remove it from the heat, move your heat source. And now to build your sauce, you have 2 options. You can do it in a mortar and pestle or a molcajete, which is the more traditional way to do it, or you can just use a mini food processor because it is so convenient and so easy. And I'll be honest, I went into today being like, I'm just gonna use this. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna put in the work for you guys and sweat profusely. Mostly. I don't have air conditioning, but there's nothing wrong with this. As long as you are cooking for yourself, that is all that matters. Now, in addition to our sesame seeds, we're gonna throw in 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. My garlic clove is unreasonably large, so I'm just going to use 2. And then we're just going to grind all of this down. And once we've gotten this all into a fairly nice paste, we're gonna start working on our basil. Now, it's not an exact science, but you want roughly about 30 grams of basil leaves. And you really can just do it more along the lines of taste, especially if you're doing it in a mortar and pestle, you can really see it, versus if you're doing it in a food processor, it's a little bit harder to gauge. Once it's chopped up, it's chopped up. It just does it all too quickly. All right, we have roughly 25 grams of basil right now. I'm just gonna add that in. And if you really don't have enough basil, you can subsidize with a little bit of spinach. It'll help kind of fill it out and give it more body. And that should break up fairly quickly and smell amazing. And now at this point, my water is boiling, so I'm going to find my salt and my pasta. And you know what to do here, right? Like, you get the gist. I'm using dulciate, but feel free to use whatever you like. And now into this, we're gonna wanna add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Again, this is more of a feel thing, and you'll get the hang of it the more that you make it. You're also gonna wanna add about 60 grams of grated Parmigiano Reggiano. I told you you'd never see it again. And for this, you really do want to make sure that you are grating this fresh, because if you use the pre-grated stuff, oftentimes there's going to be an anti-coating agent on it that's going to prevent it from making good sauce. And you don't want that. And we'll just carefully incorporate that in there. Mine's looking a little solidified, so I'm going to add in a little bit more olive oil, roughly 2 tablespoons more. And you want to make sure that nothing gets stuck up on the sides and you're really getting everything all mixed up and broken down. A couple more tablespoons. And again, this is something you want to do little by little because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. I'm going to add just a pinch of salt and no black pepper because I don't like black pepper in my pesto. So. And now that our pasta is done, we're just going to move it over. We're gonna fish it out, place it in a bowl, and then we're just going to scrape in our pesto. And make sure you don't forget any, because you know, you worked hard for this, especially if you ground it down by hand. Like it's a lot of work. And we'll just start folding this together. There's a little bit of pasta water already in this because of the way that we moved the pasta over. And that's great because we want that to help emulsify our sauce. Then once it's all mixed together and you have your consistency where you like it, all you have to do is just move it over to a plate, top it with some parm. And now for our third and final sauce and accompanying pasta, Alfredo. And not the heavy cream kind of Alfredo, the more authentic-ish Alfredo. It is the one pasta dish that can undoubtedly piss off any food snob. It is the pasta sauce that requires the least amount of ingredients, but also the most amount of technique to get right. And today you're gonna learn to make it really well. And all you need are 2 ingredients, butter and Parmigiano Reggiano. But first we start by boiling our pasta water because it is going to take 4 times as long as it takes us to prep our sauce. Now for butter, you're gonna want something that is really nice quality because at the end of the day, there's 2 ingredients that goes into this pasta, and if one of them sucks, then your pasta's gonna suck. So you wanna start with about 60 grams of unsalted, really good quality butter. This is not the time to bust out your bottle of squeeze margarine, okay? Don't do it. And now you're gonna wanna grate at least 60 grams of Parmigiano Reggiano. And I say at least because you can get away with about 60. That's a good sweet spot, a 1-to-1 ratio of cheese to butter. But also, like, who doesn't want more cheese, you know? For clarity's sake, I did about 75 grams, and I'm probably going to also grate more later on because I'm an addict with a problem. And now all we have to do is wait for our pasta water to boil. And while we wait for that, I figured I'd tell you what pasta I picked out for this. Mafalde. It's kind of like fettuccine, but it's a little bit thicker, and it's got cool wavy edges that are better for sauce. And now that we're boiling, a generous amount of salt and about 250 grams of our pasta. I really hope that it is as awkward for you when I'm standing over there as it is for me, because it's really weird standing over there. I'm in a weird position, I'm all twisted and turned, and I'm like trying to talk, but also I know like I'm at the edge of the frame, so I'm getting stretched out. I'm not exactly a thin guy to begin with, so I hope that it's awkward for you too. And now that our pasta is done, we're gonna move it over. We're going to take our pasta out carefully. And this part needs to go fairly quickly because you want to use that residual heat of the pasta to melt our cheese and butter. So what I'm going to do is place that on top of our pot because that's going to keep our bowl warm, keep our pasta warm, keep it from solidifying. So I totally forgot to press record, but let me just run you a recap real quick of what happened. Pasta finished, I put the pasta here. I moved the pasta into this bowl, I scooped out some pasta water. I put the bowl on top of this pot so that way it keeps it warm. Then I put the butter in the pasta, mixed it all around. Then I put some cheese and I mixed it all around some more. Now we're here. Cool. Sick. Like I was saying, you want to use the residual heat of the pasta and the pasta water to help emulsify your sauce. If you do it over the stove and it's too hot, you're going to end up with a broken sauce. So placing the bowl over top as it kind of cools down is going to help us stay warm, but also not overheat our pasta. And you want to do this part relatively quickly. You definitely don't want to have to stop and re-explain what you're doing because you're an idiot who didn't press record on your camera. Adding in a little bit of pasta water here. As we mix this, that sauce is coming together. If your sauce is looking not saucy and more of like cheese bits, add a little more pasta water. It is a touch and go game. You're making sure that this pasta stays silky and creamy, but you don't want it to be wet and gross. And you also don't want it to be underhydrated. As you can see, this pasta with 0 cream in it is now looking quite creamy with absolutely no cream. Now I'm just gonna add a little pinch of salt because I just want a little bit more salt, as well as a little bit of black pepper. And then I'm just roughly chopping a little bit of that Italian parsley because I want to give it a little bit of color and a little bit of freshness. It's like 6 leaves. And the beauty of making your sauce this way is 1, there's no cream in it, but 2, if your sauce starts to solidify, right, if you made your pasta and then you went and you had to do something or whatever and you came back and it started to harden up, you can add a little bit more of that hot pasta water, help break it up and make it nice and creamy again. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something. Here's a photo of me in a Superman costume, and I'll see you next week.